Hello, so today we are going to look at an interesting special thing in Kotlin with specifically arrays. So let's say, for example, we have two arrays, right? nums1 and nums2, right? So pretty straightforward. We have it's an integer array, so this will just define an int array with whatever elements we give it, right? And so you have variants with long array, short array, short array, character arrays. Yeah, you get the idea. Now you can see here I have two of these arrays. They have the same value, so normally they should be equal, right? And we also have a warning here. So what's up with that? So let's check. So you can see it says false, even though the numbers are the same. So this is sort of surprising. Like in other languages, like for example in Python, this would have passed. Like if you do something like this, for example, in Python, maybe you compare something like this with something like this, with an array like this, it should work fine, right? But here it doesn't, right? So that's an interesting observation there. And so let's look at this warning. So the warning says dangerous array comparison, right? It says that we should replace the equal with something else, right? So okay, we could just replace it with what it tells us, but also in Java and maybe in Kotlin potentially equals should be the alternative, right? So if we try equals, let's see. So this one says false, right? So let's try with equal and see what we get. So with equals, it actually says true. So this one works. But again, Kotlin has a warning. IntelliJ has a warning here saying we should replace with content equal, even though they were equal, right? So let's see. So let's replace. So let's use content equal and see. And print this one, and that returns true as well. So just remember, if you are comparing integer arrays or long arrays and float arrays, use content equal instead of equal or even this equals function. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to mention. The second thing is that if we take a look here, so I have a nested array of arrays. So I have int array of 1 2. I have an array of two nested arrays, 1 2 and 3 4 5, and similarly here with this num2, it has the exact same structure and the exact same values, right? So if we do equal again, right, like let's just comment these other ones here first, and then let's just call test2, and let's see here. So normally it should be false, like the previous example we saw, because this equality is not the right one to use. Okay, so we have false here. Because actually this equal here doesn't compare these classes properly. So let's just get rid of that one and let's try the equals function. Okay. And now we see that this one also returns false, contrary to this one. And so that's also one reason to avoid just using this arrays equal, is because the behavior is different depending on whether you have just a flat one or a nested one, right? And so so what should we use? Let's try this content equal that exists, right? So let's try the one that worked for us before, and see if we will get true. But again, we get false, right? So it doesn't work actually. Because this one also just compares the elements, the direct elements, right? And so if we compare it just these, it will say that they are different because the object itself is different, right? Int array is a class, right? And so the objects themselves are different. And so content equals doesn't work either, but there is one that should work, which is content deep equal. And so this one will keep like going deep until it reaches the elements, and then it will compare them. And so if we run this one, now we'll get true. Okay. And so you may say maybe, okay, this works for this, but let's try, I don't know, maybe let's try to make it even more nested. Let's try here to have an int array of this one is an int array, so it won't work. So maybe let's try to just make this array of, so this one to be array of this, and maybe int array of 6, 7. So something even more nested, okay? So this would be like this, and let's just use the same thing we want for the second one, okay? So let's see if we still get true. And we do still get true, so you can see it works even on multiple nesting levels, right? Okay, so another thing I want to show that is related to this is, what if we define a data class like this one, numbers, that has inside of it a values a list that is an integer array, that is an int array. Then here we have a problem actually, and you can see it here from this zigzag. It says that from this warning, it says that the property with array type in a data class, we need to have an equals and hash code, right? But then the whole point of data classes is to not need to write this boilerplate code with equals and hash codes. That's the whole point of data classes, right? But here, just by the fact that we have an int array as a parameter, we'd have to create it. And so this is really a bummer, right? And you could see even why we need it, because let's say I create 2 numbers, instances from this data class, each of them with the same name and the exact same values, right? So technically, if it was a normal data class, they should be equal, right? But if we run it, so I'm calling this function here. So if we run it, we get false. So we get that they are not equal. So, okay, let's try to do what the warning tells us to do. And so if we generate equals and hash codes, let's see what the equal generates. So it checks just the normal Java style equals function, check if they are the exact same references, checking the class, checking the names are equal, and then we check the values are equal. If they are not equal, we return false. And we check using the initial content equals, remember, that we mentioned earlier, right? And then the hash codes also just uses something similar, which is content hash code for the values, right? So remember also, you need to for your hash code, you need to use this for the hash code for an int array, right? Okay, so now after we implement that, let's see if it passes, if it works now. And now we get true, okay? So that's pretty important here, but I mean, this is starting to be ugly with this data class with the equals and hash codes, right? And so what I would recommend here instead, if there is no like real must thing, that requirement that tells you to use an int array, which usually it's not, you can just use a list int, and list int works fine because, and so we can just change this to list of and this here to list of, because with collections, however, the equality with just, so if we, let me actually just show that here. So if we do print ln of just this one, whether it's equal to, so let's say L1 equal to this, L2 is equal to the same one, right? Okay, and let's check if these are equal, and let's comment this other print, okay? So here we actually get it true, right? And so lists and collections do use the equality, have the equality working properly. You don't need to check the content equals or anything. And so for data classes, if you don't need an int array, just use a list with the type that you need. Like if you had wanted an int array, you could use a list of int, and that will solve the problem of having to generate all of these equals in the hash code, right? So if we run it again, now the comparison works fine with the list, okay? Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it what I wanted to cover related to arrays equality here. Please like and subscribe, and see you on the next one. Bye.